Welcome back to another Mobalytics tier list video for Low-Elo. Today we're jumping into all of the changes this week with patch 12.12, and not as many changes as the last few patches, but still plenty to make a difference. Before we get into the video, don't forget to head to the Mobalytics website by clicking the link in the description. There you can see all the full high and low elo tier lists for yourselves, and of course download our desktop app. With that you can find builds, runes, guides, combos, counters and plenty of other useful stuff like our post-game highlight replays and recommended picks and bans in Champ Select. Trust me, these things can really make the difference when you're trying to grind it out and climb those ranks, so why not give it a go? As always, we're going to start off with that top lane, and in the god tier we have Tahm Kench, Garen and Mordekaiser. Yorick got some buffs this patch and we've jumped him up to the A tier alongside Tryndamere, who's been creeping back into that solo lane. The Fiora and Singed nerfs bring them from S to A in low elo, although they'll more than likely still be very strong in the higher ranks. Set, Swain, Vane and Yone all move from A to B, and Gwen, Kled, Vladimir and Aurelia all fall off screen into the C tier. These champions will still be very scary in the right hands, and if they do get a bit too fed, but overall their performance just isn't cutting it enough to keep them in B+. So Tahm Kench got some buffs last patch in 12.11, and he's just become a bit busted again. It's really hard to say why, but he just seems impossible to balance. You nerf him and you never see him, but you buff him and he's got a stupid win rate instantly. Riot tried to force him into that support role and nobody played him. Then they try and tweak him slightly and everybody just abused him in the top lane again. Tahm is very difficult to play against as he just seems to be unkillable with that massive shield and his get out of jail free card in his W. If you don't have CC available, he just gets out of ganks no problem. He's got some pretty juicy damage with his autos and his Q, he's got sustain, he's got durability and a lot of kill threat too, especially once he's level 6. We're actually quite surprised not to see any nerfs from him this week after just how dominant he became in 12.11. So if you do enjoy him, now is the best time to play him again. Poppy is performing super well right now across all ranks. She boasts an incredible amount of disruption and crowd control in her kit, alongside a surprising amount of damage too. She's excellent when she's ahead, but she's also fantastic as a weak-sided top laner who can absorb and sponge a ton of attention and pressure without even getting far behind. Poppy has a pretty consistent time into the majority of matchups in the top lane. She can shut down high mobility with her W, and she sets up ganks like an absolute weapon. Poppy also scales pretty intensely too, and she's kind of just solid throughout all stages of the game. Yes, you may struggle against hyper carries that can kite and kill you, but if you pull off a good flank you can destroy them easily, or alternatively, just peel like a boss instead. Dr. Mundo's getting some nerfs this patch, understandably so, as in low elo he's got the highest win rate out of any current top laner. The nerfs should definitely make a dent in his success, but the fact that Grievous Wounds feels so weak right now, it's hard to vision him being anywhere near a bad champion. The sheer amount of survivability and sustain this guy has makes him unbelievably difficult to shut down. Dr. Mundo is definitely easy to play. He's simple to lane with, and throughout games all you really need to do is be as big of a frontliner as you possibly can be. Get stuck into team fights, absorb tons of damage, create chaos, deal some decent damage too, and take a load of enemy cooldowns and heal off all the damage done. Mundo will definitely remain a strong top lane choice in patch 12.12, despite the nerfs. Into that jungle now, and in the god tier we have Volibear, surprise surprise, Shyvana and Rammus. Amumu's buffs bring him back into the S tier and Yuumi jumps up to the A tier too. The Viego nerfs bring him down into the B tier, as although he's super popular he doesn't actually already have the most impressive success rate in low elo, and these nerfs will further concrete this. Rek'Sai and Evelynn also moved down a tier. Ivern and Jarvan both received buffs this week, but we just don't think they're going to do enough to make too much of a difference in this current placement. Bel'Veth has been a bit of an insane one. We predicted her to be an S tier champion on release and she ended up with a 42% win rate in the first week or so. However, nothing actually got changed and just after a week she rose straight into one of the best junglers in the game with a 53% plus win rate. It just seemed like people needed to understand how to build her and how she actually works. It's likely her win rate was skewed by people first timing her and playing her completely incorrectly too. Despite getting some nerfs this patch, we still think she's going to be in a very good position, and as long as you understand how to scale and how to become a monster with this champion, you're going to consume everything that you come across. Ekko's been having a great time in the jungle again recently too, and he's been incredibly popular over the last few weeks. He's just doing a lot of work and winning a lot of games again, and he just doesn't really have that many problems at the moment. Ekko is a scaling jungler, and he doesn't necessarily dominate the early game with ganks or super efficient clears, but he just does everything at an above average level. Nothing game breaking, but certainly nothing awful. Ekko scales like a beast. You can build him full AP assassin and one-shot anyone risk-free with that ultimate, or you can do what I've been doing and having a lot of fun with, which is building him like an AP bruiser instead. Frostfire with Nash's Tooth, Zhonya's and Shadowflame is a lot of fun, and you basically feel a little bit unstoppable, and you still deal a huge amount of damage too. Ekko is not quite on the level of those S tier junglers, but he's without a doubt a super solid pick to go for at the moment, and he will continue to be so in patch 12.12. Shaco is actually getting some pretty juicy ratio buffs on his abilities this patch, and it's safe to say that he's not been one of the most successful junglers since that durability patch. He's always been about burst and snowballing and closing out games early, but to be honest, people have figured out how to play him now and started building him a little bit tankier. Shaco will always have those blatant strengths in his early ganks, his objective control, and his deceitful playstyle. And despite the meta not complimenting him that much at the moment, he's still more than capable of winning a lot of games, especially so at low elo where people don't respect those early ganks. I'd say he probably does take a bit more skill currently than he previously did, but if you can make it work, he is a tremendous threat from the jungle. These ratio buffs should encourage people to build a bit more damage, either AP or AD, and we predict him to see a slight increase in his performance over the next few weeks. Jumping over to the mid lane now, and in the god tier we have Veigar, Victor, Swain and Zilean. Kassadin moves up to the A tier and Diana, Vel'Koz and Kayle move from S to A to join him. Katarina got some changes to her itemization this week as the Sundra build has been a bit too strong for quite some time. But anyway, overall, as OP as Katarina may seem, she doesn't actually work as well in low elo as you may think. Yes, if she gets fed, she's going to walk around and repeatedly hit her head on the keyboard and get pentakills. But a lot of the time she just doesn't actually get to that point. It's in higher ranks where people really do abuse her, and she's always had one of the highest win rates for any champion in Challenger in recent seasons. Katarina obviously has some pretty high crazy mobility and damage potential, but it's not as easy as you'd think to play her. She does take a bit of practice and she definitely needs a bit more of a favourable matchup to actually lane in this season, as so many of those CC heavy utility scaling mages just prevent her from playing the game at the moment. There is always opportunity to roam though, which Katarina simply loves to do. And if you can do this well enough, you can definitely carry no matter what rank you are. We're going to keep Katarina in the B tier for low elo amongst other champions in the same category of more than viable if you can play them well enough, but not as good for the majority. Annie has been struggling this season, mainly due to all of those scaling artillery and utility mages that have been dominating in the mid lane. Annie is a champion who simply cannot play in certain matchups, but if she does get a favourable one, she is super strong already. These buffs will encourage people to remember just how good this champion can be, and in the right games, Annie will be a fantastic pick again in patch 12.12. The matter of the fact is, the flash tibbers can carry any fight and any game if Annie can pull it off consistently. It can win those early 2v2s, those early dragon fights, those huge team fights around Baron, and it can genuinely be game changing if you use it at the right time. Annie is very easy to learn and to pick up, and you can farm easily with your Q and work towards level 6 where you now have insane kill threat. Then you can basically just all in your lane opponent or just walk around the map and kill them with your big bear instead. If you haven't really played much Annie before and you're looking for a simple but effective mid lane champion to add to your arsenal, give her a go. Swain has firmly settled down into that mid lane now, and although he's still popular in all roles except the jungle, this is where he's really starting to shine. Swain has a huge amount of AoE healing, damage, catch potential, and he just pumps out huge numbers in those extended fights. There's not many champions in League of Legends right now that can just sit in an entire enemy team and keep themselves alive and deal that much damage with very little effort. As we've mentioned already in this video, Grievous Wounds isn't really doing too much at the moment, so champions with a lot of innate healing are having a good time. Swain has been fantastic since those big changes a few patches ago, and the durability patch only made him even stronger. Now that everyone has figured out his best role, his runes and his items, he really is a solid mid lane choice to go for. And with no big nerfs coming this patch, expect him to be played a lot in your games, as usual. Let's move down to the bottom lane now, and we don't actually have any in the god tier this week, but in the S tier we've got Jhin, Veigar, Twitch, Misfortune and Samira. Lucian's nerfs bring him down to the A tier alongside Ashe who joins in too, and Kalista also drops from A to B. Zeri's got some more tweaks again this week too, but we think she's still in a good spot in that A tier for the time being in low elo. Seraphine's buffs bump her up to the A tier, and despite her low play rate, she actually performs really well in this role when she can farm up and build some more AP itemization. Seraphine's struggled to find a place in the meta, and although she boasts an incredible amount of utility, sustain, damage, CC and everything else, she's actually found it really difficult to be relevant throughout the early game. Picking her in the bottom lane and farming up like a scaling mage seems to be the best spot for her, as she's just not got much success as a traditional support. If you pair Seraphine up in that bot lane with other champions who can really complement her like a Senna, a Sona or a Lux, you become very oppressive and very difficult to play against, and as the later the game goes on, it can seem a bit broken. Seraphine pumps out some pretty insane damage and healing as she scales up, and landing those big 5-man ultimates at the right time is incredibly satisfying. Samira has always been a stomp or be stomped AD carry, and at the moment she's doing a lot more stomping than usual. She does require a good amount of limit testing and timing to do her job to her best effect, but as long as you can stack up those ultimate grades and press that R, you're going to have a pretty good time. Samira's buffs recently did help her out a lot, and they've made an unquestionable difference, and that's why she's in the S tier. AD carry seems in a pretty balanced spot at the moment, and there's not too many champions absolutely broken like there was for a large part of this season. Samira though seems to be a top answer to a huge variety of matchups, and her all-in potential and teamfight damage is simply bonkers. If you come up against a Samira with a lack of CC or ranged burst damage, you really are going to struggle to beat her this patch. Jhin has been one of the most popular and consistent AD carries all season, and he's still sitting in a fantastic spot again this patch. Jhin just doesn't really have too many weaknesses at any specific point in any game, and he's just solid throughout. He's got a strong lane phase, a good mid game, and in the late game he deals a huge amount of mixed range burst damage. He can contribute from afar with his W and his art. He's got gank setup, a bit of self-peel, fantastic scaling, great synergies with other supports, and he doesn't have too many auto-lose matchups either. If you are an AD carry main in Season 12, I am for sure that Jhin is part of your champion pool, but if not, why not? Finally, let's take a look into those supports, and in the god tier we have Janna, Renata Glask and Zilean. Yuumi's recent success and this week's changes bring her up to the A tier. Zyra and Bran move to the A tier as they still aren't bad by any means, but they aren't just quite as good as those that are in the S tier. Amumu Bandage tosses his way back into that support tier list after this week's buffs, mainly due to that Q's mana cost. Before they did nerf this a while back, he was pretty heavily contested and actually a bit broken in this role. But he's not going to be as good as he was now due to the meta's current state of utility ports rather than those hard engaging tanky aggressive ones. Amumu's support will definitely work again in this patch though, and he was a lot of fun to play back when he was in those priority picks. The Q charges made it really scary to lane against, especially once he's level 6 and he's just a bit of a monster at setting up ganks and in those early dragon fights too. AoE CC can be so influential, and we all know just how consistent Amumu has been in low elo over the years. Yuumi is just one of those champions that makes other champions so much stronger than they already are. Champions that can dominate games with the help from the pocket cat just become so much harder to beat. Despite being universally hated, Yuumi's performance hasn't actually been that great for a while, but recently it's been creeping up again. The changes she's receiving this patch should also help her out a bit more, and improve her success rate further. Yuumi's got some good sustained shields and poke in the lane phase, and of course when she gets her ultimate she can set up ganks really easily. She scales really well throughout all stages of the game, and to be honest she's actually really difficult to play against because of that sheer amount of healing that she can provide. Yuumi and Twitch together is a terrifying partnership to play against this patch, so it could be something you should try with your duo partner in that bot lane, if you haven't already. Soraka's ultimate now heals for more overall healing, but the part of removing grievous wounds has been reverted all of these patches later. Soraka's been a bit broken since those changes, and it's interesting to see that being removed 12 patches into the season. We don't really think these changes are going to make too much difference to Soraka though, and due to the fact that anti-heal really isn't that strong at the moment, the bonus healing to her ultimate could actually mean that this works out being a bit of a buff overall. Soraka is still having a fantastic season, and there's so many games where she alone makes all of the difference. She makes those vulnerable early game carries scale easier, and when her teammates are strong and tough to kill already, she makes it feel impossible. As long as you can position yourself correctly and keep yourself safe on this champion, you can pump out some serious sustain and utility throughout the course of any game. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of our patch 12.12 tier list video for low elo. We hope you agree with the majority of our placements, and feel free to let us know in the comments who you think is going to be super OP this patch. Don't forget to click the link in the description to head to our website and check out the full tier list for yourself. Thanks for watching everybody, we'll see you in the next video, and as always, take care.